You're listening to the Bigfoot Society, and I'm Jeremiah Byron. Tonight's account is from a mother in Oregon's Willamette Valley, someone who just wanted a peaceful night camping with her daughter, but the woods had other plans. What happened that night is something you've got to hear to believe, but thankfully they were able to fight back. This is a story of an anonymous woman who came forward and what happened that night at Fish Lake, so stay with us. All right, Bigfoot Society, you've got the privilege of talking to an anonymous individual from the Willamette Valley in Oregon today. Reached out to this individual. Actually, we got connected on the TikTok platform. And welcome to the show, Anonymous. How are you doing today?
Oh, pretty good. Thank you.
Absolutely. I know that we have a lot of interesting things to talk about today. You've got a lot of experiences that you want to share. We are, keeping your name as anonymous for certain reasons for this interview. But, I'd like to welcome you to take us back to the first time that you had an experience, and feel free to share what happened there.
Okay. Yeah, great. Thank you. So my first experience was about 2015, I believe, here in the Willamette Valley. And I grew up in the woods my whole life with my dad as a hunter and all that. So I know what animals sound like, look like, how they act. But I was with a friend and we decided to go for a hike out in a park up here. And we were just hanging out in the dark and in the moonlight to check the moon out because it was like a big strawberry moon or something like that. It was like August or September and it was pretty warm out. So we were just sitting there watching the moon, and there's kind of like a mountain ridge, pretty good mountain ridge in front of us. We couldn't see it, of course, because it was super dark. And then we're just sitting there kind of talking, just having a good time and looking at the stars and the moon. And then all of a sudden there's it just got real quiet, and we're like, what the heck is going on? And then it sounded like a freight train almost coming down the side of the mountain, and it literally came up to us in maybe just a minute or two, something kind of unreal. And we're just we stood up and we're like, whoa, what is this? And there was tall grass in front of us, so we couldn't see anything really, but you could just feel something was there because it stopped right in front of us. We couldn't see anything. We just stood up, locked arms, and my friend, he was like, I don't know what this is or what's going on. And he had a gun. I didn't even know. And I was like, whoa, you have a gun? And he's like, yeah, for stuff like this. And he was like a firefighter in the woods, and he knows how animals and everything acts. And he was just as frightened as I was. And we were just shocked, and it was pretty intense. But you could just feel this thing was just right in front of us. And we walked out of there, locked arms, grabbed the blanket we were sitting on, and walked out of there shaking. And we were in just, a national park right here. In almost a residential area. And I think it was maybe about midnight or so. So it was pretty dark. And we just went to the car and we were shaking, and it was a pretty intense experience, except for, we were fine and nothing happened to us, but it wasn't like a normal animal would do that or anything. So, and we know it was very big. It was very big.
That's incredibly intense. You said that was in a national park?
Actually it's a state park, I believe, Luckiamute State Park here in Oregon. It's right off the Willamette River, I believe, in North Albany, Oregon. There's the North Luckiamute State Park is where we were, and then there's the South Luckiamute Park, which I've also had other experiences with other people at that park as well. And during the day.
that was your first kind of introduction to the weirdness of Bigfoot, it sounds like.
Yes. Yep. And like I always believed as a child, and I was like, oh, probably, I believe anything is out there really. And yeah, because I've seen stuff in the sky, I've had a lot of intense experiences like that. And so I just believe that, anything is possible. But I do want to I don't want to like scare people or anything, but I do want to be like, proceed with caution out there, because there is some serious stuff out there. And I mean, from my experiences, it makes me kind of just want to make sure I have some kind of protection. I don't care, like, and be with people and not by myself, because yeah, there's some pretty big stuff out there.
Yeah, I think that's very wise, especially in a state like Oregon. You would not want to go out in these woods by yourself. It is never a good idea. At least be completely prepared if you're going to do so. But it's always a good idea for people to be with you, or to have some kind of beacon, something like that. But so then after that, how did that affect? Did that affect your life in any way after you had that experience?
Oh yeah, for sure. It changed like just my actually like belief. I was like, oh geez, this is really real, because I mean, I wasn't alone. Like my friend I was with, like I said, he's grown up in the woods his whole life, and he's a firefighter. So I mean, I'm sure he'd been in the woods more than I have even. And I was like, have you ever experienced anything like that before? He's like, no, absolutely not. And I'm like, okay, well, me either. So we're on the same page there.
Very, very interesting. At this point, did you start to try to look for these experiences yourself, or did they just continue to happen to you naturally?
They just kind of continued naturally. But like prior, I mean, I've seen stuff like in the sky, I've seen UFOs, just very weird stuff that I cannot explain. It wasn't a plane. It was just, stuff that I'm like, oh yeah, that's definitely something bizarre out there. That I don't think that's like anything natural that we have, but I don't know.
Interesting. So you were having UFO sightings earlier in your life, multiple times, it sounds like.
Yes, just a few. Just like I've seen like 2 or 3 kind of odd, weird things out there for sure.
Was that around the same area then, or different areas of Oregon?
Yeah, actually the same area. Mm-hmm.
Okay, gotcha. After you had that first encounter at that state area in Albany, what was the next thing you think happened that would have been maybe related to Bigfoot?
So yeah, the next experience I had was very intense, and this was camping, and like it was like summer of 2020. So yeah, it was like after COVID or whatever. Up at Fish Lake, Oregon, and my parents had actually got a campsite off the dirt road. It's just like a dry camp. It's right next to the dry lake. And then there's Clear Lake kind of right down the road, which is super awesome and beautiful. And like the McKenzie River and McKenzie Highway and all that up there. And you're pretty far up there. I mean, there's some pretty massive volcanic caves and stuff up there, like cave systems and all kinds of crazy. And the forest is super, super dense and super, super thick. I would not go in that forest alone. But you can't really walk around there anyway as like a little human, because of the volcanic rock is so sharp. And it's just like really treacherous. You can't walk around off trail too much up there. My parents had got like basically at the far end, it was like a cul-de-sac basically off the road, a dry camp, and they had a trailer, and we were super happy. Like, me and my daughter went up there, and we haven't been camping for a while. I was like, this is good. This is awesome. And we're just going to have a nice trip. And then as it was getting dark, we were, hanging by the fire, my dad and stuff. And then me and my daughter had a tent back behind their trailer. So that made us the very last tent, basically. And then no campers, and all the rest of the campers were going up towards the road. So there was no one behind us. We were the actually last people back there. So I don't know if that made us more of we were just very secluded. There was nothing, no one back there. And you couldn't really, even in the dark, it was just so treacherous that you couldn't really, people wouldn't be back there anyway. But so I wanted a fire back there because it started getting dark. And I asked my dad, I was like, hey, I want some coals to start a fire because it's really dark back there and kind of scary. And he laughed at me, and I was like, no, it's scary. I don't know. So I went to grab a shovel, and I noticed I had scared something back into the woods. Well, it was kind of like a drop off, and it startled me. I didn't know. I was like, what in the world? And I didn't think anything of it except for the way it hit the ground was very hard and solid. And it made a thud, and then it didn't move after that. And I was like, what the heck? So I go back to my dad, and I'm like, hey, I scared something off in the woods back there. It's kind of big. It hit the ground hard. And he's like, oh, it's just a squirrel or a raccoon or something. And I'm like, no, this was heavy. And it didn't move after that. It didn't run off, like an animal would. It just stayed where it hit the ground. And he's like, oh, it's fine. You're just spooked. And so I didn't think anything of it. I was like, whatever. And I just continued, to get ready for bed. And we had dogs too. So dogs would be barking at anyone around us, people or anything. I had a hound dog and a red heeler at the time. So they were with us. And that hound dog, she ain't going to let anybody near that camp, a person especially. She's not, she's gonna howl and make all kinds of noise. So this was something that she either knew it was already there and didn't care about it, or she was just ignoring it. So it was very intense. Me and my daughter were just kind of sitting by the fire. I had a cup in my hand, and I was brushing my teeth, and I was like, hey, this is pretty awesome, right? She's like, yeah. And then she made a weird look, and I'm like, well, what's going on? She's like, there's this wet popping sound, and it's disgusting. And it's right above my head. And I'm like, what? And then it brought me to my attention that I was hearing it, and I just was ignoring it. And I was like, no, I don't know what this is. And I sat there to listen because it was going back and forth between me and her. And it was this really weird, wet popping sound. How a kid would sit at their desk and make that popping sound with their finger, a pop. It was just like that, except for it echoed super loud.
Like that.
And we were just, it was just weird. And she was all grossed out. She was like, this is gross. And I was like, well, what? I don't get it. And I'm sitting there, and then these birds started chirping, and it was almost 10 o'clock at night. And I'm like, why are birds chirping? It's are they sleeping? And then the birds were right above us. It was just weird. And I'm like, this isn't really normal behavior. And then, so I'm just kind of analyzing anything. I didn't have a phone or anything, and I didn't really see anything. This is just our experience that we were having out there. And we were back behind my parents' trailer in a tent. And so that's it. And then the dogs were up front. So they weren't even caring about what was going on. And then all of a sudden, this wet popping sound explodes in my face. It was the weirdest thing I've ever experienced. I don't know what it was. I didn't see anything. It was just a weird, just explosion of that wet popping sound. is the only way I can describe it. And I stood up, my chair flew out from under me. I mean, I almost like trampled through the fire. And my daughter drops her phone and we're running, but then there was something like that, like charged at us from the bushes too. So there was movement, but I still couldn't see what it was. And I could hear like walking. I could hear like footsteps, which was another thing that was tripping me out because I'm like, well, what the heck is that? And then we run and we go into the trailer and my dad's all mad and he's like, and he's got guns. So he's like an avid, hunter fisherman. He's always in the woods. He knows everything. He sees everything. And he's like, no way, you guys are being so silly. And this is stupid. And I'm like, no, there's stuff out there. I can hear it walking around. Like there's this sweat popping sound stuff going on. We don't know what it is. And then we're like shaking. And it took us a couple minutes to calm down. We're just like, we don't know what to do. And they don't want us in there. So we're just like, we got to go back out to the tent, go to sleep. And it was almost like getting around 11 o'clock. So I remember the time. I was trying to keep track of the time. And then once I got to my phone, I started texting so I could actually know what time it was. But I didn't get to my phone till later. And then we went back to the tent. But I made my mom and the dog go because I was like, I'm not going back out there by ourselves because you're not believing what I'm saying. And she's all upset and she's like, I can't believe I got to go out there with you guys. It's so stupid. I'm like, well, I'm sorry. It's scary back there, and all this stuff is going on. And so we get in there and I have like a red lantern and that's all I got for a light. So it's like a horror movie in itself. And we're shaking with the dog and my mom. And I could still hear the walking though. Like I could hear walking around us and footsteps. And I'm like, oh crap, it's still out there. It didn't like go away. It's still there. And my mom's just like oblivious, doesn't like believe me or us. And then she leaves and then she leaves the dog with us and the dog is just like shaking. He's just shaking. He's like looking at me like, I can't believe I'm out here with you. And I'm just like, I'm sorry. And he's just shaking to death. And it's a red heeler. He shouldn't be like that. He's just like funny. Oh God. And then this thing walks up the side of my tent and I am screaming bloody murder at it, like to the top of my lungs to go away. I'm like, go away, go away, go away. Just trembling, terrified. And I'm like, people have to hear me because I'm screaming to the top of my lungs. No one cared. We're just like back there shaking and terrified. And then this thing walks around the front of the tent and goes to my daughter's side. It seemed like it was more interested in her. It didn't even care about me. Just like I'm screaming bloody murder at it. And no, it goes to her side. And then there's like a tree, because I remember the tree being there by the side of her tent. And then it starts pushing in on the side of the tent at her. And it was like a horror movie. And she punched it through the tent and it fell back and hit the ground with a heavy thud. And we grabbed our blankets and stuff and ran with the dog and ran back to the trailer. And they were all mad at us, even more. And we didn't have a place to sleep. So we're like, we're just going to go to the car. My hound dog, she's very close to us in my parents' truck. So she could reach my car with her chain or whatever, her rope. So she was free outside. She could roam around. She wasn't barking or anything. Like she didn't seem worried or scared. And I'm just like, but she was being very quiet. And so I was like, well, she either knows this thing is out here or she just doesn't care. But it's not a human or a person because she'd be barking like crazy at it. And then also there was like these older people camping right in front of us with like, they were outside and stuff. So I was just like, I couldn't believe that they didn't even come over to see if we were okay. Because we had to been making so much noise. I know I was, but yeah, I was like, whatever. And they're fine. We're being harassed and whatever. It's like the middle of the night. We're being harassed still. And so we're in the car. My daughter finally starts to go to sleep. I lock everything up and I just have this feeling this thing is like watching us. I don't know what's going on, but then my car shakes and moves like it's touching my car. And I'm like, what the heck? This thing rubbed up against my car for the rest of the night until 2:00 in the morning. And I turned my car on. I didn't want to see it. So I had I just didn't want to look at it. I didn't know what it was. I didn't really know what was going on. I figured it was like Bigfoot because that was like my only explanation for it. Because that's all I can think of. We're being harassed by something out there. But I didn't want to see it, so I had my face covered halfway. And when I got my phone, I started texting, so I knew what time it was and all that. And it just would like rub up against my car. The car would shake, and I'd rev the engine. So every time this thing rubbed up against my car, I would rev the engine to get it off the car. And the dog wouldn't bark, and she was out there, so she was seeing this thing rub up against the car, and she didn't even seem scared. She would give it kind of like a half bark and then it would like rub up against the car. So it was like she kind of knew it was there, but she didn't want to. I don't know. She was acting very weird for a dog, for a hound dog especially, because that ain't right or normal. But then, let's see, it was like around 2:45. The sun was starting to come up, and that was like my savior, because I was like, oh my gosh, it's finally starting to get light out. And I'm like thinking, the only way I'm going to know this thing has hands is if like something hits my car, or like, that's all I was thinking, was that if something hits my car, I'm going to know it has hands so it can throw stuff, I guess. That's like one indication that it has like, the same kind of function we do, other than rubbing up against my car. And then sure enough, like this little tiny pebble hit the center side of my window, the passenger window in the car, and just made a tink right in the center of it. And the direction it came from, actually, there was a massive drop off. It was like treetops over there. So I know there was like, it was so steep. There was nothing, you couldn't even a person wouldn't want to be down there. And it was 2 a.m. So no one's throwing rocks at my car window other than something odd. But yeah, that was my experience camping officially.
That is absolutely, I mean, man, that is horrifying. Wow.
In 2020.
Yeah. So you're already amped up. And then this on top of it. Can you provide, so not, you don't have to say the exact age, but how old or young was your daughter at this time?
She was a teenager, so I believe she was maybe 15 or 16 at the time.
Okay.
Maybe a little older.
So the next morning, you get up. Was it a leave the campsite as quickly as possible, or how was the next morning?
Oh yeah. Well, I mean, I spent the day. We went to Clear Lake and went paddle boarding and stuff because it's absolutely gorgeous up there and you can't really miss that. But yeah, we went and spent the day, and then for sure I was not staying another night, so we did not do that. Okay. But we did come back the next year in 2021, and we had also another experience.
Gotcha. In
the same same spot. It was the same exact spot. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Wow. A few more questions real quick about this one incident. Did you happen to notice, were there any markings on your car where it had been pushed, or handprints or anything? Yeah.
Yes. So like in the dirt, like you could see it looked like hair, like hair, like a bear or something almost was like rubbing up against my car. I didn't see like hair or anything, but and I didn't smell anything. But it was like definitely like you could look. It just looked like hair had been rubbing up against it. Yeah. So there wasn't really like any marks or anything. But the rock hitting my window was definitely. I was like, oh gosh, what the heck? That's crazy. And then everything stopped as soon as it got daylight. It was over. It just ended. Like it went away.
Wow. Was there anything in the ground that you noticed that would have been maybe left over from that night?
Yes. So there were scuff marks. So like there was a scuff mark from the first time where I had scared whatever it was back into the woods where it jumped and just stayed there. There was a big scuff mark there because I wanted to see if there was something, and there was. And then also there was a lot of digging. I noticed like because I went and walked back farther to see if there was like any kind of other weird things going on. And yeah, there was like way up high on the trees, it looked like bark strips were just like ripped off, like shredded down, like ripped in, and there was like big gouges scraped into the trees themselves. And then it was just like the bark was being torn off the trees. And it was kind of, some of it was on the ground, but not all of it. And then there was a lot of digging at the bases and the roots of the stumps and just bases of the trees. There was like a lot of like holes dug. And not like from gophers or squirrels or anything. It was like actually dug. You could tell like something was digging all weird around like the bottoms of the trees where the roots would be and stuff.
That's very, very, very strange.
The next experience in 2021 was we couldn't even stay the night. It was that bad, which sucked because I wanted to stay the night so bad, and we traveled all that way. It's only an hour away for us, but an hour away from my parents, but we wanted to hang out, and they were super upset that I could not stay the night. I drove back home. I was like, no, and that's not like me. I don't just do that. Like I've been in the woods like my whole life. I just, I'm once I'm somewhere, I'm going to be there, but not with what we were experiencing. I was like, no, we're going to go home. But so in 2021, when we got there, I had a different tent and I put it in a different spot. I just put it up more up front. I was like, maybe it'll be better if we are not back where we were last time. But also back where we were last time, you couldn't be back there anymore because there was 2 trees just randomly placed kind of parallel, like to where our tent was, exactly to where our tent was. And then our little camp circle or fire pit was all filled in like a pyramid with rocks. It was very interesting. There was storms up there. I know it got stormy over the, winter and all that, but just the way things were placed, the trees themselves, and then the fire pit being filled in like a pyramid was definitely just kind of strange to me. That was not normal. But what made us leave was my daughter had kind of gone back to where we were camping with the tent prior to that. And she was back there. And then she came back and I had the tent up already. And I was like, look, we're going to have a nice night or whatever. And she's like, no, we're not. And I'm like, what's wrong? And she's like, well, I heard that wet popping sound again. And I just looked at her like, what? And she's like, yep, it's back there. And it was daylight. And I was like, no, you did not. And then I kind of started to pay attention and I was like looking around and listening. And I just started to get just a weird feeling. I was like, oh, we're being watched right now by something. And so I was just hanging out. And then my daughter was, so I had parked in the same exact spot that I was, except for the tent was like kind of right next to us, to where that little rock had hit the side of the window. So that's kind of where our tent was now, where that little rock came from. And so that's all treetop right behind the tent. It was just treetops. You couldn't even go back there. It was just a drop off. And I'm standing there kind of facing my daughter, and she's in a chair sitting in front of the tent. And then this rock comes bouncing up over the tent and almost hits her. And it was just like right in between us, right in front of us. And we're just looking at each other like, oh, no, we're going to go home. I'm not doing that, dude. I'm not going to have rocks thrown at me like that. And be like harassed with wet popping sounds. Maybe more than that. I don't know. But it was very intense. So I took the tent down and we did not stay the night.
Wow. I do not blame you. My goodness. How big was the rock that was thrown at you guys?
It was just a little like pebble-sized rock, like just it's funny, just a little pebble-sized rock. And my tent was very tall, so you know the easy up canopy tops with the cube that goes inside. It's not a small tent. Like I had a very large tent for this rock and then plus back behind that was like a 20-foot drop off. So wherever the rock came from, I have no clue because it came from far away, but the way it bounced down over the tent at us and landed right in between us was just the most bizarrest thing. I was like, I don't know.
That is absolutely wild. So both you and your daughter were in agreement, we need to leave right now.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I don't blame you.
Yeah. And then my parents, you know, they were super upset. They were like, we can't believe you're leaving. This is so stupid. So I'm like, what? You guys are so, and they'd been there the whole time. They're just, I don't know if they were just not experiencing what we were, or they were just used to it. I don't really know, but.
Wow. Yeah. I mean, yeah, that's interesting. If my kid was being messed with, I'd be like, all right, time to go, but hey, whatever.
It was a very weird thing because I didn't feel threatened like I needed like a gun or
Right.
I don't know, but also like I'm like, I don't know how, what the size of whatever this is messing with us. I don't even know what it looks like. I just know these weird things that are happening around us. So like we never saw anything, which is another really weird thing, because I feel like it was so close to us, whatever this thing was. Or whatever was going on. It was just like very close.
It's very strange. So far, I mean, you haven't had any visuals, but you've had stuff happening right in your face, which is just so interesting. And the wet popping sound, I'm trying to think. I don't know if I've had that actually come up in other sightings.
It made me actually go back and do research into Bigfoot more, because I was like, all right, I'm just going to start like researching more about it and seeing what, if I can match any of my experience up with whatever, their research is or whatever research is out there. And I actually found this guy had some recordings on a tape of, Sasquatch, Bigfoot recordings, the sound. And I found the wet popping sounds in there, and he called it chatter. Like they're chattering back and forth between each other.
Oh, okay.
And that's how they communicate. It's a communication. They're chattering. And they mimic birds was another thing I found out. And also like they mimic other animals. They mimic birds, sounds. Yes. Obviously they're going to be able to do that because that's their habitat they're in.
Yeah, absolutely. So it sounds like you found the Sierra sounds by Ron Moorhead that were recorded down in California. Are those the sounds? Yeah.
Yeah, I did find that, but there was another one. I can't remember like the name of the person that had it or anything. And I know it wasn't the Sierra sounds, but I have seen or I have heard the Sierra sound, which is absolutely insane. But I'm from California, so I also grew up in the Sierra Nevadas hiking with my dad through the woods, and I have never experienced anything even down there. And where he's taken me and staying in the woods, camping, I've never experienced anything like what I've experienced up here, which is kind of strange. But he said he has seen Bigfoot before one time, and I believe him because he's a hunter. So I just believe, that he did see it, and he said it scared him enough to grab his gun and go the other way. Wow. And I was like, I believe you then, because you're a big guy, you're in the woods your whole life, so for something to scare him, I believe. And I've always just I'm very open to the supernatural or whatever, paranormal, any of it, UFOs. I'm just very open to every religion, not religion, just spirituality, and I'm just very open to that kind of stuff.
Absolutely. Also. So some people that would experience something like this, they would never go in the woods again, but you actually started going on a road to try to figure out what was going on out there, it sounds like.
Yeah, yeah. So when I researched some things and I just started matching things up, it was mostly the wet popping sounds. I wanted to know what that was, or if I could find anything like that. And then when I did, I was just like, wow, so this kind of makes sense. It's kind of adding up. It's going together. Which I wasn't like unsurprised, or I wasn't surprised, Yeah. There was something about the birds and coffee. I've heard stories about like people leaving like coffee, like they like coffee, and they like just silly things, like they like SpongeBob and just really funny things. So I don't necessarily feel threatened that they want to hurt people, but also I'm like, I feel like people should just be aware that it is very possible for them to be out there, and that we should respect, their habitat, and just be mindful of what is out there, and that there is other things out there.
Absolutely. I mean, and the state of Oregon and this area you've been talking about, there's so many weird things that have happened over the years. And I mean, I myself personally have heard the bird mimicry in a Bigfoot area, just area of Oak Ridge, I'll say. And it really is weird. It is weird as all get out. So
very strange.
This is 2021. Did you continue to go out and do camping trips even after all this?
So another weird thing is when I got back from that particular trip, the 2021, and it was I remember the date and everything because it was super warm. It was like September 2nd, and it was hot, and we had a big, giant red strawberry moon. So everything was lit up outside like strawberry red. It was pretty crazy. And I worked at a titanium company. So I had to go to work super early, and I was getting ready for work. And this is a residential area. I live in North Albany, so it's a residential area. And then it kind of goes into the woods a little bit. Not woods, but it's more country. But I had my bathroom window open, and I was getting ready for work, and I just heard this blood-curdling roar. Like, I've never heard anything like this before in my life, and it sounded so angry and so mad. I can't even explain the sound that I was hearing. It was just so deep and just like a roar. And I mean, it made my I was just like, I'm sorry to say, I was sitting on the toilet and I was just like shaking. I'm like, what the, I didn't expect to hear that from my bathroom at all. Especially after the experiences that I had, I just was very scared, and I was like, no way, we're in, there's a residential area right here. There's no way there's stuff like that right out there. But I believe it came across from the street or the road, because there's kind of a field over there, and it makes sense that the sky was so lit up. So to me, it makes sense that there could be some kind of hunting going on, or following, how the animals are really active during that time. So that's kind of what made me think that it was just a really active time for them.
Mm. Oh, that is wild.
But yeah, right outside my home, I heard it.
Did anyone else hear it as well?
That's the thing, is that it was like 2 a.m. Oh, yeah. So I for my family, no one else heard it because everybody was asleep. And I just happened to have like my bathroom window open. So the way I heard it, it kind of echoed. It echoed from like across the street, because Like I said, there's a big like farmhouse and field across the street, and it's just like that's just where it sounded like it came from, and it just like, but it was very loud, and I just kind of wouldn't doubt it either.
There's some wild stuff that you've been experiencing over the years. Has this affected things at home as well? Did weird things start happening at home after you started to have these experiences?
I've always kind of had
Right.
just like spiritual experiences and stuff. So yeah, I would say just because I think maybe because I'm just really open to, I think just kind of everything could possibly exist. And, you know, I don't want to, I don't know. It doesn't bother me that I think they're real. I think it all exists, and especially experiencing stuff. It's just proof to me. I don't need any more proof. Like, I'm like, no, dude. But yeah. And I don't really think my experiences are going to stop. I think if I go out into the woods more, it's just going to continue to happen. There was another time also I was hiking with a friend at the South Luckiamute Park in North Albany. And we just went for a walk. It's like a big giant loop. I don't know how far it is or anything, but at that time it was summertime, so it was pretty warm. And the grass in this field had not been cut. So it was like taller than us. So anything could be out in that grass. Big animals, you wouldn't even know that they were out there, honestly, because the grass was so tall. So we were walking around the grass, and then it started to get really thick in certain areas. And I was telling her just about my experiences, actually. So I was out there talking about it. And then we started to hear like tree knocking, and I was like, oh goodness. I was like, oh my gosh. She's like, did you hear that? And I'm like, yeah. And so, you know, we're kind of walking, talking about it, and we like turn this like bend, and I had this smell hit me in the face. Like, I can't explain it other than it smelled like a big wet dog, but it wasn't stinky. It was like a mossy, oaky smell, like a fresh, clean, mossy, oaky smell, but it was like wet fur, hot, wet fur. And it was a live smell. It wasn't like dead or disgusting or anything gross. It was like just kind of, you know, it didn't have a gross smell. But the way it just creeped me out so bad that it felt like it was right there on the trail almost, or right next to the trail. But it's the way that smell hit me in the face. And then I was like, oh gosh, they're out here too. And then we started hearing more tree knocking after that. And I was like, and then she pulled a gun out, and I didn't know she had a gun. And I was like, she's like, yeah, for stuff like this. And I'm like, we're just walking around, experiencing that.
That is some really interesting encounters that you've had. Just wild stuff. Do you have any thoughts about what it is that, or I guess what Bigfoot is out there? Do you have any thoughts about that?
I believe and think that they are their own thing for sure. I don't really think that we have any kind of relation to them. We might have some possible similarities, maybe, you know, like the hands and like I don't know, just some things, but I don't know what they are. I do think that they are dimensional beings. For some reason, it's just what I gather, and even from research, when I went and researched some of it, there was a story of this lady. What was this guy? He came across this lady in an old house or something, and I don't know. It's really weird. I don't know the area where they were or anything like that. It was so long ago, but anyhow, supposedly she was like caring for them in her house, and they were destroying her house. And she said that this is what she told the guy, is that they were getting too big to be in the house. So she would put them outside, and they would help her feed her horses and all this stuff, and help her with things that she couldn't do around her farm. And she would feed them. And then she said once they got too big, the spaceships would come and get them. And ever since I heard that, I just was like, oh my gosh, I kind of believe it.
That's wild. And this is one of your friends telling you this?
No, it was a story I found online somewhere or something. It was just a story, but it kind of made sense to me just because it's just so weird, and how they would get so big, and then where it brought the UFOs in, like, it just kind of makes sense to me that if they get too big here, that they come and take them away. I don't know. And maybe that makes sense why we don't find their bodies and stuff like that. But in the story, she said that she put a TV out in her garden and she put SpongeBob on. And this is where the SpongeBob thing comes from, is that they would sit and watch SpongeBob, and they love SpongeBob so much. And she cared for them, I guess. So I don't know.
I have heard it.
Yeah, I think anything is possible.
One. That's a wild one. Would you ever want to have an actual sighting yourself?
I don't know. I mean, I probably, it would just definitely tell me for sure that they exist. But I also now I don't really question that they exist because of what I've experienced. So, I mean, it might be a little just scary. I don't know.
Absolutely. It's definitely a thing where I think you would want to, it's just something you have to be prepared. I haven't even had it happen myself, but from what I've heard, if you're ready to have it happen and you make that known, that can help out a lot.
Right.
I've heard that a few times.
As of like wanting to go into the woods searching for them, I don't really feel like I need to do that. I feel like they will just come to me. But as of, I don't know, trying to communicate with them, I'm not really sure. I don't know. I just don't know if they're friendly or not. And that's, I think, my biggest concern. But in a way, I feel like they're really curious about us because of the behavior that went on with me and my daughter, when that happened. I mean, it was pushing in on the side of the tent, like very slow. It wasn't like a scare, and there was no scary like growling or anything like that. And it just seemed very more curious.
Sure.
But when she punched that thing and it flew back, I just kind of was like in awe, because I couldn't for one believe that she punched it and then it flew back and hit the ground. And I'm thinking, did I just watch my daughter like punch Bigfoot through the side of our tent and it fell and hit the ground?
I mean, that's got to make you kind of proud as a parent.
It's crazy. Yeah. So.
Oh man. Well, Anonymous,
pretty cool. Yeah.
I just want to say thank you for coming on, for sharing what you've experienced. It's some really, really intense stuff. And I want to make sure that you were able to share everything that you had come to the show with tonight.
Yes. Yeah. Oh, my other thing I want to put out there is like I said, coffee. So I think if you want to attract them is to have, maybe some trinkets, something that's not going to be like poisonous or anything like that. Maybe more natural. I don't know. I'm sure they like fruit and apples and, all that good stuff. So, but yeah, I think just gifting them things and acknowledging them. And I really just think that maybe they're here to help the planet and maybe even us. I'm not really sure, but, and it's just very startling for us to experience because we're like, it's not normal.
Yeah, I think you might be on the right track there. But, if you ever have any questions or if you have other things happen, feel free to reach out. We'd love to to hear any future things or experiences that you come across out there in Oregon.
Okay, definitely. Thank you.
Yes, I'm going to be getting up with you soon here about some accounts over here in this area, and I'm going to try to get my neighbor rounded up. He actually spotted this creature, and what spurred me to want to do this, I just have listened to the story from about a year ago from the deputy up in retired deputy up in Ashe County, Chris Miller, was listening to his account, and I don't think he saw the creature. I've not. I've seen the footprints, but my neighbor saw the creature, and I'm going to try to get him rounded up for you and make an interesting episode if you can just hear his account. And I may speak a little bit on it too, but I'm going to try to get his permission. If I can, I'm just going to get him to give me an accurate detail of his account, and I'll give it to you to sort of back up what Mr. Chris Miller told you. These things do exist. They're here in western North Carolina, eastern Tennessee, and so are some other cryptids. My son, just across the state line over in Rome Mountain, Tennessee, he saw a cryptid look like a hyena mixed with a wolf or something. I don't know. It's the weirdest looking thing. There's pictures of such a creature on the internet, but anyway, I'll try to fill you in some more details here soon when I get a little more savvy with the internet. I got to have help. I'm one of these people very poor with internet, so I'll be talking to you soon. Thank you.
If you'd like to share a voicemail to be potentially featured on the show as well, head over to BigfootSocietyPodcast.com and hit the Share Your Encounter button. Just wanted to take a minute to say thank you for listening to this episode of the Bigfoot Society podcast. This anonymous woman's story is one of those rare accounts that stays with you not just because of what was seen, but because of what was felt and heard and how close it all got. So huge thanks to this individual for opening up and reliving these terrifying moments in the Oregon wilderness from Fish Lake to beyond. And if you enjoyed this conversation, please subscribe to the channel on YouTube, hit the bell so you don't miss new episodes, and share this one with a friend who's into Bigfoot, strange sounds in the woods, or just a good old-fashioned story. If you're on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, make sure you're following the show, and hey, leave a review if this episode really spoke to you. We appreciate those 5-star positive reviews. Helps the channel continue to grow. And if you or someone you know has had a Bigfoot encounter, especially in Oregon, I'd love to hear from you. So please email me at bigfootsociety@gmail.com. Also, don't forget Sasquatch Summerfest just around the corner, July 11th through 12th at Green Waters Park in Oak Ridge, Oregon. And Bigfoot Society listeners can grab a 2-day pass for the price of a 1-day admission with code BFS at checkout. Tickets are now available at www.sasquatchsummerfest.com. Thanks again for being part of the Bigfoot Society. Until next time, keep your eyes open, trust your gut, and never stop asking what else might be out there, and see you in the woods.